Good morning, planet Earth. Thank you very much for tuning in today to the QC Cubed Space Station. My name is Eric Staubus, and I am the QC Cubed Space Coach. Today is video number 5 in a series of 7 designed to introduce you to the intelligent energy of space. Video number 5. We are discussing the science of space experiments that I've designed and participate in to replace the Michelson-Morley experiment of 1887. I like to begin every video recounting the discovery that I made in 1979. It sets the pattern for everything, because I discovered that the source of the energy that moves particles through space is space itself. Everything's made up of particles. There's only one space in the universe. Whatever moves the particles moves everything else. The space that contains us is the same as the space that is contained within us. So there's one source of all energy. It's created everything. Everything includes intelligence. And the conclusion is that the emptiness of space is the way we, humans, perceive the creator of the universe. Okay, now, moving right along. Every school and university on the planet Earth, every school, teaches science students that this is a mechanical universe that was started with a big explosion 18 billion years ago. I think that is probably the biggest cover-up on the planet, simply because it is not true. This is an eternal universe. It has no beginning. It has no end. It is eternal. It did not start with a big bang. Physicists back in the 1960s looked around and saw motion everywhere. The particles inside of atomic structure are all moving. They never stop moving. Everything that's made out of those particles, like stars and planets, all moving inside of this expanding universe. Nothing ever stops moving. Meanwhile, in Newtonian physics, F equals ma. Force equals mass times acceleration. If something is moving, it is because a force has acted upon it. In this frame of reference, there's my notebook, it's not moving. I push it, it just moved. Everything in the universe is moving, which means a force has acted upon everything. And when they couldn't find that force, they invented it. And they called it the Big Bang. But it has never been proven to be true, simply because it is not true. What we are learning in the science of space is that the source of the energy that moves particles through space is space itself. The force they were looking for is in the one place where no one ever thinks to look for it, and that's right before our very eyes. Glass is off, glass is on. The mystery is right before our eyes. There is published proof of this in quantum physics that no one seems to be paying any attention to. I met the physicist who provided the proof of this in a 1985 issue of Physical Review D. Anyway, if you want to see that, you can go to my other website, scienceofspace.com. The new truth is that the energy of space moves every particle in the universe, and it moves everything that is made from those particles. I keep repeating that over and over again because it's true, and we don't learn it. This one source of all energy has created everything, including intelligence, which means the emptiness of space knows what we think and what we believe. Now that'd be great news, except for one slight problem. With all of this comes an obligation on our part. Our obligation as intelligent beings is to know who we are and what we are supposed to be doing with our lives on this planet Earth. We share our soul with the soul of our Mother Earth. Without a soul, there is still life, of course, but there is no true awareness of that life, nor of the responsibilities that we obtain when we are given the gift of life itself. In today's video, we're giving further consideration to the famous Michelson-Morley experiment of 1887. I say famous because even though I don't know, when I meet people, generally speaking, they have no idea what I'm talking about. But the Michelson-Morley experiment was crucial to the forward motion of the intellectual. Hey! It's my dog. LMA! Hey! Jeez. Well, there you go. Hey, the earth keeps on spinning. In today's video, we're giving further consideration to the famous Michelson-Morley experiment of 1887, which was wonderfully conceived and brilliantly executed by two highly respected physicists at the University of Chicago. What I hope to show you in this brief 15-minute video, aside from the fact that I have an assistant by the name of LMA, the dog, okay, what I hope to show you is that they used the results of their experiment to arrive at the wrong conclusion. You do not have to be a physicist now to read about the experiment and understand why it was performed and what they were experimentally trying to prove. You don't have to understand all the higher math involved, okay? But what is important is that you realize that when the Michelson-Morley experiment supposedly disproved the existence of the luminiferous ether, that was not all they disproved, because back in the 19th century, the ether was considered to be synonymous with the soul. Okay? Therefore, when it was assumed that they disproved the ether, they inadvertently also killed the human soul. Okay? Intellectually, they killed the human soul. It is my contention that this crippling of the human soul translates out into the death knell for the soul of the planet Earth. Okay? The luminiferous ether was an important part of life on Earth for thousands of years. It was part of scientific thinking, okay, until they tried to measure it in the latter part of the 19th century. Now, when you try to measure something you cannot directly perceive, you cannot measure the thing itself. So you try to measure what the thing does. In the case of the ether, the assumption was that as light passed through it, the motion of the light would be affected. The effect on the light would then be measured, but when no effect could be detected, the assumption was that there was no ether, right? Albert A. Michelson and Edward W. Morley could have assumed that light was not affected by its passage through the ether, but they did not. Now, what I'm going to suggest is that they proved what they set out to prove. The ether is synonymous with the astral plane and with the soul. And materialistic science has no need for that which it cannot directly observe. This disproof had important consequences in physics, but it also had very meaningful consequences in the prevailing philosophy of life. The ether was a handy, unseen substance that permeated all of space, which allowed for the passage of information through space. In spiritualism, it helped to strengthen the ability to believe in what could not be seen. And it provided a vehicle for the transmission of the power of prayer. the ether. Basically, it made it easier to believe in God and easier to understand how prayer could act at a distance. Of course, if you look back over history, you see that religion has always been at odds with science. Materialistic science achieved a great victory when the Michelson-Morley experiment disproved the ether, and it dealt a lethal blow to the soul of humanity, because the ether and the soul and the astral plane, where psychic things go on, they were synonymous back in the 19th century. So when they disproved the ether, they also, in their own thinking, which translated out into the thinking of society, they also disproved the existence of the soul. Okay. Anyway, it dealt a lethal blow to the soul of humanity, which dealt a lethal blow to the soul of the planet Earth. And that is the primary cause of global warming. You see where I'm going? That's the primary cause of global warming. How do we link the Michelson-Morley experiment to global warming? I'm glad you asked. The experiment was designed to test for the presence of the ether. Here's how. The Earth travels in its orbit about the Sun at a mere 67,000 miles per hour. Now, at that velocity, it made sense to think that the ether wind, right, through which our planet was moving, the ether wind, that's what they thought it was, would have a different effect on light waves as they traveled in the direction of the motion from when they traveled at a 90-degree angle to that motion. I like to compare it to riding a bicycle in a strong wind. When the wind is at your back, it helps to push you along. When you're riding into the wind head on, it slows you down. You got to work harder, right? If it's a strong enough wind and it hits you from the side, I guess it could knock you off the bike. Well, it was assumed that light passing at different directions through the ether wind would be similarly affected. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't affected at all. They just jumped to the conclusion that there was no ether wind. Okay. Well, that's because they tried to attach materialism to spiritualism, and you can't do that. Anyway, so please allow me to pose a simple question. What if we just assume that the unseen ether cannot be directly detected by any means? It seems to me that that makes more sense than just assuming there is no ether. Because, don't forget, at that time, the ether and the soul were considered to be synonymous. Of course, materialistic thinking is not quick to assume the existence of things it cannot directly perceive anyway. So the loss of the soul is of no great consequence to those who don't believe in the soul to begin with. Nonetheless, the Michelson-Morley experiment did not disprove the existence of the ether simply because the substance of space cannot be directly measured by any means. At best, its effects can be measured, like I showed you with the bottles of water. But what does this have to do with global warming, you might ask? Yes, there is too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but what causes that? Here we go. Why is there too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? Well, because we burn too much fossil fuel. Okay. So, in other words, it's our behavior that is causing global warming. It's our behavior. We're burning too much fossil fuel. In other words, climate change is a consequence of human behavior. Yes. So how do we change that? Well, question number 2, what is human behavior? Whatever else it is always a result of the way we think. However, how do we think? What is the common denominator in all human behavior? How do we all think alike? That's where I'm going. How is it that we all think alike, no matter where we're from? What is the flaw we all have in common? It is simply this. We all assume that life is the way it appears to be. We all assume, we have to, okay? We all assume that solid matter is really solid and empty space is really empty, simply because that is what appears to be true. We trust in appearance because we believe in what we see. But we all believe a lie. And that global lie has us not living the truth on the planet Earth. The scientific truth about solid matter is that it is full of particles in constant motion. This truth leads us to the conclusion that empty space is full of intelligent energy. Common sense tells us there's only one space in the entire universe, which means the energy of space has created everything. Now, all we have to do is assume that when we say everything, we mean everything. And we realize the emptiness of space is the way we humans perceive the Creator. That's the new truth. I love that quote from Jesus. Know ye not that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. Okay, he was referring to the energy of space as the Father, which is fine. Okay, well, it's true. Don't you realize that the energy of space, you're contained in the energy of space, and the energy of space is contained within you. Okay. Okay. We also know that space that contains us is identical to the space that is contained within us. In other words, we are contained within the Creator, and the Creator is contained within us. This is the ultimate truth about who we really are. In video number 7, I will show you how not knowing this truth is what allows the climate to change. Because we're supposed to know the truth, okay? But once we know this, we actually do have the power to stop global warming. It's caused by our behavior. We must change our behavior. The only way to change our behavior is by changing the way we think. And what's wrong with the way we think, aside from everything? Matter's not solid, space is not really empty. Now I want to close this video by describing what we propose to do to replace the Michelson-Morley experiment. The luminiferous ether had been around for a long time, and it was playing an important role in human understanding. 19th century metaphysics was trying to compound a scientific approach to spirituality, when its longtime adversary, materialistic science, was able to undo the influence of the unseen and move forward with the great strides in human understanding that quantum physics and relativity were about to add to the consciousness of the planet. The Michelson-Morley experiment was followed right after that by Einstein's experiments. Another way to look at this is with the imagination, realizing that we have intellectual progress and we have spiritual progress working at different times or working together, both contributing to the evolution of our spiritual humanity. I'm not condemning science because they're the ones who have proven the existence of moving particles inside of atomic structure. And that's the basis for the realization of the energy of space. We have performed the experiments that prove the presence of fields of energy that have not been identified by modern science. This is true. I have personally seen, here's a little aside here now, and participated in applications of this energy to the miraculous healing of degenerative disease. I've been there. But we will not digress on these important issues in this video, nor in this current presentation. But I will say this. The experiments that we will be sponsoring in the university will show that what is now thought to be dark energy is in fact the energy of life itself. We have found the source and the identity of dark energy, what it is and what it does. The amount of energy that is waiting to be understood and utilized for human good is vast and immediately available. We will show that the fabric of space is real. We will devise methods that can utilize this new energy source to feed all of humanity. I had to throw that in there because that's part of our responsibility. Then we will utilize this new energy source to settle the solar system. Then we will utilize this new energy source to travel the stars. We have a lot in front of us. Thank you very much for tuning in to video number 5. I look forward to seeing you for video number 6. God bless you. Thank you.